It's happening. Look who's about to bring down the hammer. Operation Gideon's Chariot is rolling straight into Gaza. And if you think it's going to tap the brakes for a few United Nations hissy fits, well, you better think again. If you haven't been paying attention, Hamas is gutted, exposed, and reeling, and guess who's not playing the apology game anymore? That's right, President Trump. While the rest of the globalists are waiting to see his next move, drafting ceasefire statements, Trump's backing the Chariot with the full weight of the foreign policy that doesn't ask for permission. It demands results. This isn't just a military op either. It's a message, and believe me, it's going to be heard loud and clear, and that's the story I'll bring you here in just 1 minute. But I know by now, you know what we do here, right? We cover all the main headlines before we get to the primary story. Pete Hegseth, another one that's not being reported accurately on CNN, kind of being reported accurately, but very misleading. Hegseth orders Pentagon to cut number of senior generals by 20%. Oh my gosh. Why is he cutting 20% of the senior general staff? Well, it's not that darn big in actuality. As of February of 2025, the U.S. military has 38 active duty 4-star officers. He's reducing it to 30. And what do you think he's eliminating? Those that are subscribed to DEI and woke principles. He has been doing the same thing. This isn't a monumental story in any way, shape, or form. And either was, as I told you prior, the Kash Patel partying in nightclub story. Kash Patel spotted in nightclubs more than at work. Well, until you have to broadcast a retraction that it was all just being made up.
And now let's circle back to a segment from Friday's show. Frank Figliuzzi was on that morning during this hour discussing the work of administration officials. At the end of that segment, Figliuzzi said that FBI Director Kash Patel has reportedly been more visible at nightclubs than at his office at FBI headquarters. This was a misstatement. We have not verified that claim. We will be right back.
Ouch. And why does nobody trust the mainstream media? I wonder, why are you here? Why is this platform growing? Because of things exactly like that. They continue to manipulate truth right before your very eyes. How America took out the Nord Stream pipeline. Seymour Hersh, we covered this article. Conspiracy. Not right. Absolutely not. It was Russia, Russia, Russia. Until you ask President Trump the same question, and he gives you an answer that a lot of folks didn't want to hear.
Russia probably did not blow up its own pipeline.
Yeah, if you can believe. They said Russia blew it up, yeah.
And so I'm wondering now that you're president, if you would consider launching a formal investigation into what happened there and who actually did blow it up.
Well, probably if I asked certain people, I'd be able to tell you without having to waste a lot of money on an investigation.
Oh, a little cryptic in his answer there, huh? You don't need an investigation. I just have to ask a couple people, maybe around here who probably know who blew it up. In other words, was it really a conspiracy? That's always the question, isn't it? Boy, all these conspiracies are suddenly crumbling before your very eyes. But thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for joining as a member. Thank you for the super thanks yesterday. And thank you for all the support you give RestrictedRepublic.com. Can't thank you enough. And another huge thank you to a new sponsor for this channel. And I hope you've gone to justiceknightgold.com. Here's the page you're going to land at right when you go to justiceknightgold.com. Here's the hard truth, folks. Every 6 years, your dollar loses half its buying power. That's $100,000 in savings today. It could feel like $50,000 by 2031. But there's a way to protect and preserve your money. Gold. Noble Gold Investments makes it easy to own gold and silver. No pressure, no call centers, just honest one-on-one support. And right now, if you open and get an account qualified, you get a free 10-ounce silver American flag bar. An amazing offer right now. I need you to go, though, to justiceknightgold.com. And again, that's Noble Gold Investments. Or if you'd like, just simply call 877-646-5347 and tell them Justice Knight sent you. There's more information in the description box below. And remember, there's always a risk to investing, no guarantees. But if anyone can help see it through, it is Noble Gold Investments. Go to justiceknightgold.com right now. Another major news story breaking right now. DHS announcing that they will begin paying for commercial flights of illegal aliens who self-deport from the U.S. They will pay these aliens an additional $1,000 once they are confirmed to have left the country. Everyone goes crazy. Why would we do that? Well, they've already told you they were going to do this. They're just putting it into action now. And what does that do? Does it save us money or does it cost us money? Can't wait to see in the comments below. It's a pretty easy one before I get to the major question I have for you. DHS tells us that aliens who register as self-deport will immediately be deprioritized from ICE arrest and will maintain the ability to return to the U.S. But if DHS deports you, you are not going to be eligible for return. Pretty simple concept, right? So what's the financial impact of this?
That right now it costs on average about $17,000 to arrest, detain, and deport someone. They say paying for self-deportations and the stipend will only cost about $4,500 per person. That's about 70% cheaper.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Christy, no. Ice Barbie, seconding that statement. 70% savings for U.S. taxpayers. Download the CBP Home app today and self-deport. Seconding that sentiment is Stephen Miller. The savings are as much as $1 million per illegal alien family, given the long-term cost of free welfare and public support. They have my complete endorsement for this action. I completely agree with what they're doing here. I don't completely agree, however, with many Republicans right now. Why do some Republicans want Ed Martin confirmed? Why don't some Republicans want Ed Martin confirmed? Why are they hiding? What are they afraid of? If any of these folks are in your district, please give them a ring for us. Ed Martin was nominated by President Donald Trump to serve as U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, and you will not like what happens if Tom Tillis, John Cornyn, Susan Collins, and Bill Cassidy don't get off their proverbial asses and support this man. Of course, they're not the only ones who are resonating that they may not support him. Would we expect none other than Rhino Senator Mitch McConnell himself saying he will also vote against Ed Martin? Well, that's a great idea, because if you do that, who gets to appoint the interim attorney? Judge Boasberg. Need I say more? A stranger headline and a bigger truth I can't bring you, but there's many things going on. I was going to play this clip, but I think it's irrelevant because I'm so upset by this clip that I'm just going to tell you what happened. Carol Levitt's question: when is the Epstein file going to be released? I don't have any specific timeline on that for you, but I do know that they're working on it over there very hard, right? Caroline, if you knew how important this was, and you do know how important it is to we the people, you should probably be privy to the timeline and have it in your pocket at all times. We've asked for this a billion times over, and yet you continue to delay it and delay it and delay it. It's starting to look really suspect now. It was several weeks ago. Just get the damn thing out and let's get this over, or at least be prepared with a response when you know before you walk in that room that more than likely you're going to be asked about it, because we ask about it every single day. But to digress and give us some good news here, who defunded gain-of-function research yesterday? Who signed the executive order to do so? None other than President Donald J. Trump.
Gain-of-function research is a type of biomedical research where pathogens are adulterated, viruses are adulterated to make them more potent or to change the way that they function. Many people believe that gain-of-function research was one of the key causes of the COVID pandemic that struck us in the last decade. What this executive order does, first of all, it provides powerful new tools to enforce the ban on federal funding for gain-of-function research abroad. It also strengthens other oversight mechanisms related to that issue and creates an overarching strategy to ensure that biomedical research in general is being conducted safely and in a way that ultimately protects human health more.
It's a big deal. It could have been that we wouldn't have had the problem we had.
Right? A lot of people say that, sir.
If we had this done.
Amazing how long it took to get that done, huh? Secretary Kennedy coming out. In all of the history of gain-of-function research, we cannot point to a single good thing that has come out of it. Can you? Scientist out there, go ahead. Let me know. But in the realm of insanity, before we get to our primary story, I can't believe this many insane things came out in one. Actually, I can. So we do this for a living, right? Told you, all the major headlines, so you don't have to look anywhere else for them. CBS nominated for Emmy for the editing of the controversial Harris interview. That's right, the two different segment interview, two different answers. Even Snopes saying broadcast two different versions of Harris's answer. But I guess the nominating committee didn't get that memo, so it's okay to go ahead and nominate someone for an Emmy for editing a political answer. That is the lunacy of the mainstream media right now, and why none of you should be listening to it. There's the two answers. I don't need to say it again. But now the headline story. This one is critical. I'm going to break it down first, and then I'm going to go through the details. Operation Gideon Chariot is not a symbolic strike. It's a calculated, strategic dismantling of what remains of Hamas. After months of sustained pressure now, internal collapse and external isolation, support of President Trump, the terror network is weakened. And this operation will be moving in for the final cut. Maybe. I'm going to give you the maybe at the end. There's no going back now. And who's cheering from the front? Donald J. Trump. No anonymous source, no foggy foreign policy statement. Trump's been clear. Has been crystal clear. Israel has the right to defend itself. This isn't about occupation. It's about obliteration of what is deemed by Trump and Israel as a terror infrastructure. It's surgical, it's tactical, and it's being done with purpose. So what should we expect in the short term when I go through this? Expect media meltdowns, UN emergency sessions, and virtue signaling politicians begging for a pause, all while Israel will tighten the vice. What's the long-term potential impact? The Middle East may finally reach a reset. No more shell games of humanitarian shields. Trump's strategy and his public backing forces everyone to pick a lane, with the West or with terror. So before I go any deeper, ask yourself this. Why is it that every time Trump backs an operation like this, suddenly everyone on the left forgets Hamas is a terror group? Well, that's right. Because it's not about justice, is it? It's about politics. And Trump, he's playing to win, not to pander. So what do you prefer? From what you know about this right now, I'll ask this question twice. Do you support strength or surrender? Easy. Strength or surrender? If you don't know the answer yet, that's okay. I'll ask it again when I go through the details of this. And there is a lot of details of this. You heard yesterday, or you heard prior to yesterday, on the Cradle.co, Israel vows to strike Yemen without restrictions following Ben Gurion airport strike, and they did. They said it out loud. The airport strikes removed all restrictions from our perspective. Whoever harms us will be harmed sevenfold. And last night, it happened. The details of this can get confusing. I'm going to try to keep it black and white. I'm going to take two correspondences, both with somewhat the same viewpoint, but nonetheless, they did a great job in outlining what's about to happen. Palestinians fear Israel's plans for Gaza war expansion. You've heard that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the plans to expand the war on Gaza will be intensive and could include an indefinite army presence and forced displacement of 2.3 million Palestinians. We've had this strike, and now we have the plan. John Spencer, amazing job here. John Spencer did an amazing job here. Israel announces approval and plan to launch the next major phase of operations in Gaza, Operation Gideon's Chariots. One that appears guided by a phased strategy rooted in lessons from the past. Clear, hold, build. Here's what it means, and here's why it matters. Now I'm going to put this with Saul Sadka. Both of these guys did an incredible job of outlining what's about to happen. I'm going to keep it as black and white and high level as I can, but there is some details in here that we cannot skip. The IDF is currently drafting 10,000 minimum for Operation Gideon Chariot. It's a long time since Gaza posed a strategic threat, but it still exists as a festering sore holding 24 hostages and 35 bodies. So what will the end game be? Divide and conquer. How do you do that? Well, Israel has a strategy. Secure the release of all hostages, dismantle Hamas's military and governing capabilities. That's the key. Who are they going to let govern it? The people in the region. Hold for it. And ensure that no threat can reemerge from Gaza to endanger Israel again. And how will they do that? They will keep boots on the ground. In the 6 weeks since the end of the ceasefire, which lasted 2 months from January 19th to March 18th, the IDF has slowly been reoccupying the buffer zone between Israel and Gaza, widening it, clearing it of buildings and shrubbery, and carefully reoccupying many key corridors. You see the red line there. Hamas putting landmines in, attempting to stop them, but there's not enough of them remaining anymore. It's been rumored that Israel knows exactly where all the hostages are, even before the ceasefire. Sometimes precisely where they were. It's even possible Hamas telegraphed their locations because, remember, they believe in somewhat a strategy of human shields to prevent further warfare. This plan is much different than we've seen before. So far, instead of raiding in, limited clearing, and withdrawal operations, the IDF will operate with full force, expand its presence across Gaza, and remain in every captured area until new leadership can be risen up. The plan appears to have 3 defined phases. Prepare. IDF forces shape the battle space, isolate Hamas, allow for hostage negotiations, and pre-position for sustained ops. This just happens to coincide with Trump's trip and a deadline, mind you, but hold for a minute. Clear and hold. Methodical clearing of Hamas presence and capabilities area by area with IDF maintaining control, and then build, govern, stabilize, and support local alternatives to Hamas. And would the people be behind this? This is the biggest question. Remembering there's little remaining to what Hamas used to be. They used to have around 30,000 trained fighters. In October of 2023, 21,000 are dead. At least 4,000 are in Israeli detention. They could be shipping in a few more, but nowhere near to get to that number. Now, Hamas is trying to recruit tens of thousands of troops. That seems kind of high. More than likely Hamas propaganda. And the Gazans, the ones who really matter here, have had enough. And polls show now that most want to leave their ravaged coastal strip to start anew elsewhere. They want out. This is ridiculous. Who could deal with this every single day? And Hamas is profoundly unpopular among the population of Gaza. 90% of the population displaced. Who would stand for that? So Israel ratchets up. Civilians will be temporarily evacuated from main combat areas in northern and central Gaza to southern humanitarian zones, cleared by IDF forces to separate civilians from Hamas militants and facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid. Can we substantiate that? Rumor suggests Israel is planning a large refugee camp in the area, completely separating a large part of Gaza's population from Hamas. So we have validation. Because Egypt is saying, no, you can't bring them over here, which means you have to create a zone for them to go safely. Remembering the original pre-war population of Gaza, although some would say it was 2 million, was closer to 1.5 million. This is not a new war. This is an enforcement of clear, hold, and build, and it's what Israel's about to put down. And you have a couple strategies. The ink blot strategy, secure small areas and gradually expand control outward like ink spreading on paper. Or the safe neighborhood strategy, walled zones where local governments could operate under IDF protection. And this is seconded here by showing the alleged strategy of how they will divide and conquer and govern select regions. The goal is to have Gaza never rearm. And who could afford to do this? Israel and the United States. These two guys are almost hand in hand in this. But this is urban warfare. And it's never won by firepower alone. It's won when a population believes that something better is possible. No matter what the mainstream media is going to report on this, this is about building new opportunities for those in Gaza. It's not just about destroying Hamas. So what's next? The IDF's calling up the large number of reservists, the largest mobilization in a year. And the response rate's been 102%. The plan faces real challenges. Remembering Hamas hides among civilians, uses hospitals, mosques, and schools to shield itself. It thrives in chaos. But this next phase is designed to shrink that chaos with order, sequencing, and presence. It is not a full throttle attack. Hamas can be isolated in two ways, both pursued by the IDF. Remove its human shield population, the resettlement camps, which leaves them, the Hamas, vulnerable to conventional warfare because they rely on human shields. The thinner the population is, the less chance they have to maintain strength. It deprives Hamas of income, meaning less ideological-driven recruits will leave as soon as the resources dry up. This is a very well thought-out plan. Hamas will actually, in many ways, isolate from itself. Once isolated, Hamas leadership effectively loses control. Ceasing to exist as an organization, Israel can make individual deals with division commanders, arranging safe passage to third countries. Those claiming Israel can't occupy short to medium long term ignore history. Israel has held up to 50% of Gaza with minimal troop numbers sustainably. But now they're not going to be in minimum troop numbers anymore. Once Gaza is partitioned, and the IDF's established bases enabling access to Hamas free towns, arrangements for Gaza's long-term governance can begin. Each city will gain self-governance under a fully demilitarized arrangement surrounded and bisected by Israeli buffer zones, similar to what occurred in the West Bank. The key part of the plan? Aid will now be delivered directly to Gazans, cutting Hamas out of the distribution loop. This removes one of the group's main tools of power, control over food, fuel, and medicine. There's a problem. The UN said it won't assist. Despite this being one of the most major humanitarian crises in the world, the UN has refused to support aid delivery unless Hamas regains a role. That's not going to happen, folks. And Trump doesn't care. And Netanyahu doesn't care. So good luck, UN. What happens next will determine Gaza's future for decades. This isn't just a military operation, it's a test of whether Hamas's grip can finally be broken and whether a better alternative can survive and rule. And what has Trump said? He wants to build a whole new Riviera there, right? He's saying that for the people, that they have new hope. But this isn't going to be easy, and it's not going to be quick. Success requires a sustained IDF presence, large-scale force commitment, and the evacuation of civilians. A process Hamas actively sabotages every opportunity they have. Clearing dense urban terrain and tunnel networks is slow, dangerous, and unfortunately lethal. And that will be the resistance. Many unknowns remain. And now this culminates with what's happening in the background. President Trump has proposed letting civilians who want to leave Gaza do so, but Egypt continues to block any such movement. If Egypt was to stop that block, things will accelerate even more rapidly. They have to open the Rafah crossing. Israel's preparing to clear and hold the territory, but it also intends to build security, aid, governance, and most important, hope. The goal is twofold: to shatter Hamas's belief that Israel lacks the will to dismantle its grip, and to give Gazan civilians hope that something better can come after Hamas. And how do we know this is all coming to fruition? Because they set the deadline based on the end of Trump's visit. Deal? Or the structure dies. My friends, this is coming. Either there will be a monumental negotiation that Trump is able to facilitate, and I don't believe for a minute that negotiation would ever hold, not because of any weakness by President Trump, but because of the track record of Hamas. So the moment he leaves, we may be looking right down the barrel of one of the most biblical, proportioned, epic battles we have ever witnessed. We can only hope and pray that the civilian population is kept safe and out of harm's way, but unfortunately in this battlefield that is rarely the case. To not understand it in these simple concepts would be doing you no justice. So I ask you again, what do you ask President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu to do? To show strength or to surrender? I can't wait to see your comments below. And if you want any more detail on this, put it in the comments also, and I'll make sure I get it for you. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you just like the black and white details of what's occurring. I can't wait to read all your comments below. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out.